Are we online, Steve? Oh.
Sal, I need to look at the end so I can fall asleep.
Is it? Oh.
Someone got their
the big one?
No, both should mute.
What's coming?
It's coming for the laptop, Steve. It's showing as mute.
Still repeating. We made it in time.
Is it still? Yeah. So just a moment, we try and sort out this technical issue. Is that working now? No, it's still coming out. How's that?
Same again. Is it yours, Dal?
It's coming out mine, actually.
Yeah.
Have you got a Chinese bug in there? Try that. No.
Daryl's going to come off. We don't know why it's doing it.
Okay. Right. Welcome everyone. Sorry we're a few minutes late. That's because of a few technical issues there, but I think we sorted it out there. And so we'll move on to the agenda. Before I start the agenda, just a couple of quick announcements. One from me, and then I'm going to hand over to Bernard, and that is to welcome Nadine to the executive. Welcome, Nadine. Lovely to have you here, and I hope you enjoy it and find it fruitful and can achieve everything that you want to. So not a lot.
Thanks.
And now I'd just like to turn over to Bernard as chairman of the district council.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Today, as you all know, is D-Day, and I think we should all remember the young men who fought to free us from our friend Mr. Hitler many moons ago. So I'd like us all to stand and have a moment's reflection, please, on that wonderful day. Thank you all very much. That was one moment. You can imagine what the guys went through on several minutes of that day when they landed on the beaches. But thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you, Bernard, for that. And I mean, I think we should also remember the young women, many of whom are working behind the lines in secret services and things like that, who also gave great sacrifices. So, item 1, the minutes. So, to approve the minutes, are you happy that they're a correct record of the minutes? That's for the meeting on the 18th of April. Are you happy for me to sign that? Yeah, all in favour. Thank you very much. Item 2, urgent business. I have no items of urgent business. Item 3, division of agenda. I think there are some potential that we may have to go into to divide the agenda. There's some confidential information about council tax write-offs and such like, and business rates write-offs. So if we do, then we will, but otherwise, no. Item 4, declarations of interest. Members, any declarations of interest for the items coming up? No? Oh, Jackie, sorry.
Only to say that the Staverton neighbourhood plan, obviously, that we're making it today, but I have been not involved in the process, but an observer during the process.
Thank you. I'm sure that would just be a personal.
Absolutely.
If that, yeah. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Item 5, public question time. I think there was one question, but it's been deferred because it's during the PERDA period or the pre-election period, so it's not doing that. Item 6, executive forward plan. Members, any comments? Over to you. I think one thing that, a couple of things that I'd like to say. First of all, that that there is a column in it of the consultees and means of consultation, and that is blank. And I think we need to start populating that so that we do understand that there are issues that need to be discussed and consulted on, not only amongst ourselves but within the wider community. And also, I'm just checking. So it's got the productivity plan. Has that fallen? We still have to do the productivity plan.
We've not been given any advice to say that we don't at this point, so I think we are planning to proceed until apprehended, Leader.
Can we just take a decision not to and see what happens? I think that would be the most productive thing that we could do.
We've done most of the work.
Oh, have you already? Okay, I'm sure you
have.
have. All right. So, no, then obviously, then,
and actually, I think it tells quite a good story of how productive this council is in partnership with West Devon. So and we've written it very much for the public rather than for government.
Okay. Perhaps they might learn from it.
We're hoping so. We've given them suggestions at the end.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Right. And any other comments on it? So it's just for noting. Jackie, sorry.
Page 7, which actually mentions community composting, which is my portfolio. I would like to actually include something in there that we actually receive an update at that same time for the September meeting. The report's coming out on the waste services. I think we'd like to report back on how the progress has been made with community composting. So I think it makes a certain validity of my role rather than it just drifting under the radar.
Absolutely. Totally agree. So
where
is that? Because I think you got
7. It says waste and community composting.
I've got a different page.
Oh, it's page 19 of the.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that is so the waste services update. That's the 19th of September. So we would like to have the waste service, but also community composting.
Update on progress with community composting.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Yeah, no, because I think we've got some good stories to tell there, particularly around Malden. I think. Sorry. Yeah, I know.
You've got progress since then that you don't know about, Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'm just wondering, I haven't spoken to Mr. Powell about this, but I know it won't be an issue, but we've just put out the new enforcement protocol, and I'm wondering whether we can table in at 6 or 12 months hence a report from enforcement on how that new protocol has gone down and what the figures are looking like. I'm happy to take officer advice on the precise timescales, but I think it would be good to put something in the forward plan around that to really see how that's bedded in and whether it's made the positive impact we're looking for.
Yeah, no, good idea. So that would that be sort of November time or yeah. Yeah, I think that would be good actually. I mean, it would be nice to see, especially if it's working and we can see the numbers going down. That would be really, really good. Yeah.
But
Okay.
equally, if it's not, so that we can make sure it is.
We'll probably defer it then. No, right. Any more on that? No, right. So that's for noting. Thank you very much. Item 7, corporate peer challenge. So I think that's me to do that. I don't think it's appropriate, particularly at this time of Perda, to go into it too much. But I just think that we all, so that's all councillors and officers, should be incredibly proud of this report that's come up. I mean, it says that that having many new councillors, a new administration, a new plan. And it's incredibly complimentary about how that there's been the smooth transition. So I think it's all good really. Particularly, I'd like to do a couple of personal thanks, and the first is that it talks in here about one of our strong points is has an excellent track record of financial management and planning. So, Lisa, thank you so much for everything that you do along those grounds, but also to thank previous administrations that have all been part of that. It hasn't just suddenly appeared, it's been there for some time, and so that's thankful. And also just to thank all the other councillors, and particularly Jackie and Nikki, who's not here today, for them trying this new approach to how we want to include everyone in decisions and decision making. We're not going to agree all the time, and we don't. I mean, we've seen it in operation, but I just think it's the more I talk to people on the doorstep, the more they tell me that they're just fed up with that bickering and petty politicking that goes on, and that of course you should criticise when things go wrong and when a decision is taken, but that some of it just goes too far, and we want to try and eradicate that as much as possible. And I'm hoping that this council will be a beacon of that, about how it can be pushed out across the whole of the political spectrum. So thank you all, everyone, for sort of bearing with me. And finally, obviously, Andy, to you and your team, which have done a great deal to support the new administration and all the councillors in bringing forward our plan. We've done the easy bit, now we've got to deliver it. So, next year I hope that we can report back that we've done, lots of the stuff that we want to do. We've done the advice that we've been given in this report that we carry out, particularly on member development. I know is an important one. But yeah, I think that's all I've got to say on that. But yeah, of course you can. Sorry.
Thank you very much for that, Chair. Is there any, I don't know if it's the right time to ask this, but is there any plans to bring forward a list of aldermen? Because I think that was talked about in the past, and I was just wondering if there's anything in your plans to actually bring that forward.
I don't know, I'm afraid.
So, in response, Leader and executive members, I think we have a plan to have a member reference group which will consider all manner of things in connection with member development and such like. I think that might be an appropriate place to have that conversation, and I will have a conversation with the leader and with the leaders of the respective groups to see their position on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernard. Any other questions, points, queries? Sam, you're perfectly welcome to make any point. You're right. You haven't fallen asleep. Just checking.
Yeah.
Right, Jackie.
All I would say is that we can't be complacent just because you get a good report. At the early stage, relatively early stages of a new administration, this isn't meant to be, sort of being cheeky. But I think it's easy to go, oh, we're doing all right then, and then let the tension down a little bit. I think it's actually quite good to keep the pressure up and keep checking ourselves, because it's only really a sort of like a a snapshot in time.
No, absolutely
And,
agree, Jackie.
But what I would say is that whole thing that you say about more integrated council and how you work, everybody's working. It's not just that; it's also about not having that playing out politics where you've got one party that says this is our agenda, and it's that running those politics through the council, which was my experience before. And I think that's what's significantly changed in terms of atmosphere within the council itself. I think it's like, what do we all think is really important, not some government that just happens to be the top, leadership of the group. And there's no disrespect to anybody that was, in the previous council of the leading party. But I think it was hard to get out from under that kind of sort of what felt like a very rigid position. So I thank you for that.
No, well, thank you, Jackie, and absolutely agree with you. We mustn't rest on our laurels. Now's the opportunity. They've told us that we've got all the building blocks in place, and now we've got to really deliver. Right. Any more comments? No. Thank you all very much. Is there is it for noting? So it's noting and endorse. Yeah, I think one is noting, so that's fine. So endorsement. I'd like to move those recommendations. So it's endorsing the recommendations that we've got. Dan, happy to second. Thank you very much. Can I see all those in favour, please?
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Right. Agenda item 8, cost of living crisis. Jenny, can I hand over to you to just give a sort of brief synopsis of it? Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So the report summarises 2 key issues. Firstly, the proposals for the latest household support fund allocation, and it also gives a 12-month update on the revenues and benefits team following the service review. So with reference to the household support fund, this is funding that will go through until the 30th of September 2024. In terms of the recommendations, we are seeking to support Devon County Council care leaders with direct support payments of £500. I think it's important to stress that the recommendation is to actually go above and beyond what's been agreed by Team Devon, in that proposal only relates to those care leavers who have a liability for council tax. We think it's important that we actually support all care leavers who reside in the South Hams. So therefore the recommendation is that we do exactly that with a support payment of £500. Because obviously residents are still struggling with the cost of living crisis, we are keen to get the balance of the funding out as soon as possible, and the bulk of the funding out as soon as possible. And that will be an open application process based on need, and a decision taken by the team in terms of residents presenting that need, and obviously getting that support out to them as quickly as possible. The second part of the report is to note the progress made by the Revenues and Benefits Service in the last 12 months following the service review. I don't intend to go through that in any great detail, other than just to focus on some of the, the external validation we've received, in the Devon Audit Partnership has recently undertaken internal audits for council tax, business rates and housing benefit. And I think it's quite important to note that for council tax and business rates, the audit opinion has moved from limited assurance to reasonable assurance. So I think that shows an overall positive direction of travel. In terms of housing benefit, the audit opinion was reasonable assurance. That remains unchanged. But in terms of the implementation of previous recommendations, that's now moved to substantial assurance. So again, I think that's kind of showing an overall very positive direction of travel. There is some reference to the fact that the team have now, we've brought in the taking of telephone calls from the contact centre into the team. So we hope that residents are now having their queries dealt with at first point of contact, resulting in double handling, cost efficiencies as a consequence of that, but also increased levels of customer satisfaction. Just to highlight on collection rates, so in terms of collection rates, the council tax collection rate for 23-24 is 98.4%, and we anticipate that will keep the council in the top quartile nationally once those national figures are published. And in terms of business rates, we managed to achieve a collection rate of 98.9%, which is an increase on the prior year and is likely to also put the council in the top quartile nationally. Paragraph 4.4 just kind of set out some of the key things in the revenues and benefits service plan for 2024-25, mainly focusing on providing good value and good quality responsive frontline services for our community, but also ensuring that we don't lose that focus in terms of maximising income from our various income streams. Finally, to add, in recognition of the continuing impact of the cost of living crisis, we intend to create a new 2-year fixed term post to provide specific support in this area. This post will be funded by the administration costs from the current and previous household support fund schemes. And just kind of like to stress that we appreciate that not everybody wants to engage with us digitally, so therefore it's really key that this post will also offer the opportunity for residents to engage with us in an in-person basis if they choose to do so. Happy to take any questions.
Lovely, thank you, Jenny. And any questions, Jackie?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for not only a really interesting report, but also what you do. I've experienced coming to housing, to council various officers with members of the public, just to be there, to sort of sitting next to them, kind of thing, when they've asked me to. And I know how how thoughtful the officer team can be actually with people, which makes it really easy. But what I was going to say was one thing that I think is a real sort of right on our doorstep asset that maybe is not mentioned here. So I just wondered really how much you use the CAB, because they provide an amazing service. And because I know that, for example, Food and Community, when they give them give out free food boxes, which they willingly do, they do require a referral, and CAB does some of that legwork. But I'm just thinking in terms of what we offer. If people have been to the CAB as well, sometimes they can get additional, so they could find out about us, but also about other forms of funding that are kicking around. So it might just be something that gives people a bit of extra push, but also and support, but might also take a little bit of the pressure off our shoulders, but gives them another tool in their toolkit as well.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hodgson. I'll give that feedback to the team. Just in terms of citizens' advice, we do work very, very closely with them. We kind of see it's a complementary service, I guess, in just making sure that we bring in sort of every possible funding and support to help residents. And the intention is that this dedicated post will reinforce is probably the wrong word, but kind of progress that in a more positive manner.
Any more questions, comments, members? I'll just make a few comments. First of all, I'm really sorry that Nikki's not here, because Nikki would normally be presenting this, and we know that this is a topic that's very dear to her heart. So, and she's been pushing the council for that. So, sorry that she's not here to do it. You're going to have to I'm going to leave it with me there. I am thrilled to say that once again that we're showing the lead in respect of care leavers. Our chief executive Andy has made that a personal crusade, and it really is beginning to bear fruit on a whole county-wide level. And he's very much led the district, so we're thrilled to be part of that. I think also it'd be churlish not to thank the government for giving us the extra funding. I mean, we asked for it; they gave it to us. You know, fair play to them. You know, and hopefully, I mean, one would hope that it wouldn't be the case, but you know, I'd be pretty sure that come September we'll still be needing this kind of funding in place. So let's hope that there's something continues on that. And finally, like Jackie, I'd just like to thank Jenny and your team for everything that you do. I mean, I think, you know, the steps and the move forward, I think is great, and it's very heartening to hear that some of these incredibly vulnerable people who turn up and need help and reassurance are getting it from your team, and that's great. So thank you so much for that. I mean, in the next report as well, I think it's, you know, testament to what you're doing, the fact that everything's going in the right direction, even in these incredibly testing times. So when we're talking about the write-offs in the next report, it's the same. You know, we're seeing the same thing. We're moving in a positive direction, which I think, you know, is great. So thank you. Right.
Can I ask a question?
Of course you can, Bernard. Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. That was great. I just wanted to ask: is the pot that you've had for government, is there a limit on that? Have you spent it up, or is it going to be spent up? Please.
Yeah, so what happens is Devon County Council receive an allocation from government, and then they allocate it to each district based on universal credit take up. So unfortunately, it is a finite amount of money, but we will endeavour to spend every last penny of our allocation.
Just on that, leader, we always spend it, Bernard. We always spend it. So we never end up with any left over. Not us, but we always make sure it's allocated out.
Just following on from that, actually, I mean, it's a, you know, sometimes we're contacted by people in a very, you know, desperate position, and so how are we communicating that this fund is available for them to apply for, and are we making sure that we're not letting some of the most vulnerable slip through because for whatever reason they don't engage with us or they're not on the internet? And so do we have a strategy? I'm sure we do have a strategy. You're going to tell us now.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously there's sort of the more conventional communication channels in terms of you know, social media. It's clearly on the website, so on and so forth. But if someone you know, presents to us in whatever way, and it looks like they are actually struggling, this is something that we would direct them to. We also have the Exceptional Hardship Fund. This is only available for people who are in receipt of council tax reduction. But in terms of, you know, those conversations with residents, if we become aware of somebody, we will just, you know, do that signposting, that support, encourage them to apply for everything that they may be entitled to.
Great, thank you. Right, if there isn't any more, we've got 4 recommendations there. I'll move the recommendations as a stand of those 4. Dan, you happy to second those? And all those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous for the 4. Thank you, leader.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to agenda item 9. I mean, this is quite a technical report in a way. It's something that we have to do. Any debt over £5,000, I think it needs to be reported, come to the executive for us to write off. Those debts over £5,000 have been certainly in the confidential papers, you know, explained why it is. I mean, you'll see actually on my papers, it's pages 72 and 73. The reasons why we're writing off the council tax, insolvency, people disappear without trace, insolvency, debt relief order. A debt relief order is basically if somebody declares themselves bankrupt, I think it is it? And then they're basically, we have to take the hit on that. Is that right?
It's not quite bankruptcy. It's kind of one step before bankruptcy, but it's just to kind of give somebody, you know, sort of more opportunity to negotiate with their creditors and solve the position. So it's not quite bankruptcy, but it has the same impact in that we have to write that debt off.
So we don't have any choice in that. And then obviously deceased. some other reason. Members, I don't know if there's any questions you want to ask about it. I mean, once again, hi Sam, nice to see you. Other Sam. Yeah, no, good. Yeah, yeah. What would you like to ask?
Sorry, it's just a technical question actually, and it's just in my role as on audit. I know in the September meeting, it was mentioned that a new corporate debt policy and enforcement agent contract was to be in place during 2023, and I just wondered if those two things had happened. Thank you.
Jenny, can I ask?
Yep, thank you. I'm happy to take that one. So yes, we do have a new corporate debt policy, which is on the website. In terms of the enforcement agent contract, the new framework was open from the 14th of May, and we're just in the process of just finalising those documents and expect to go out to tender in the next couple of weeks.
Great, Jackie.
This may be a stupid question, but I'll ask it anyway. When you talk about insolvency and it's not going as far as bankruptcy, which I think is fair enough actually, to not, because bankruptcy can make a massive difference to people's ability to restart a new business or something. And of course, fair enough that we need to, this point is made in the report that post-COVID there's been a lot of issues for people. Is there any way that we ever ask for a clawback? Sort of a delayed. Do we allow it as a delayed debt? Is that we give them 3 years to pay or something like that? Would that be something, or is that done? Is that appropriate? I don't know.
We do enter into payment arrangements. There is another form of insolvency in its wider sense, which is an individual voluntary arrangement. So what happens with an individual voluntary arrangement is that all the creditors submit a proof of debt, and it's kind of determined that, I don't know, for example, that the debtor pays back 29 pence in the pound or whatever. So when that happens, obviously we still continue to receive some of that council tax income, but it also gives the debtor, kind of the opportunity to manage their debt, but not put them down the route of bankruptcy, which, as you say, has quite fundamental impact on sort of what people can then do in the future.
Great. Dan.
Thank you, Leader. You've also done loads of work, and it's really appreciated. I suppose my question in public is that obviously billing and collection and recovery process is all governed, so your hands are tied to a certain extent on what you can do. So is there anything else we can do, and you are doing, that means we can possibly avoid these sorts of situations in future? Because obviously you're clear what you're doing here. A lot of this is mopping up, isn't it, effectively?
Yeah, so I think I think kind of the point that perhaps we've moved to now, because there has been a lot of mopping up, is that we have much more structured processes in place. So we have a structured recovery timetable. We don't like taking people to court, but the legislation allows us to do that. So we have more courts. But what we're finding is that because we are actually taking earlier, quicker action against people, they are actually engaging with us, because we'd much rather get them to pay, come up with some sort of arrangement that actually meets their needs as well, understand what's going on with them. So I think it's kind of a combination of more engagement, quicker processes, more defined processes, but also when we get to the point that we do go to court and obtain a liability order, it's then taking immediate action at that point, rather than just kind of letting this all build up, and it kind of then becomes really difficult to collect, because you're then going back a number of years. So it's kind of that discipline in terms of actually the immediacy of collection.
Thank you.
No, Steve.
Thank you, Leader. And it goes back to the point you made on the previous paper, is this is due to the work that Jenny has done with the team in terms of all those things that she's now tightened up and are in place. So hence that we're doing more mopping up, we're responding quicker, debts are not getting as big, we're working with people sooner. So it links back to the service review and all the work that's been done on that, as you referred to, linking it the other way around.
Yeah, no, and that's reflected in the direction of travel.
And that was reflected in why I asked the question, because I think it's really important we have the opportunity to say that, actually.
Absolutely, indeed, and well done, Jenny. Excellent. Right. So we'll go. So we note the first. Number one is noting, and then the second one is actually we have to approve the total write-offs, which includes some that are delegated to Lisa, that's under 5,000, but also the ones over 5,000 that are listed here in the papers. So I'll move the recommendation. Dan's happy to second it. All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Right, that's it from me. You'll be pleased to hear. Agenda item 10 is Denise. Excellent. Hi, Izzy. I see you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I wanted to start with a couple of things which are not on the agenda, housing items, if that's acceptable. First of all, you may have read in the media about the St Anne's Chapel scheme that we have, and the delays in residents moving in. And I'd like to apologise on behalf of the council to those residents for this. Positive news we have is that they will be moving in soon, in a very few weeks. Just to explain and expand, there has been a legal dispute between the council and the contractor, and we could not say very much during that dispute for obvious reasons. That has been now resolved, and the builder has begun work at the end of May to rectify the issues with roads around the properties. The county council, which has a highways responsibility, has to adopt roads to an agreed standard. They were not initially happy. Eventually an agreement has been reached to a revised methodology to sort it all out. I have to say it has all taken too long, so as said before, we are very sorry about that. On a personal note, I must say I think I could have been briefed a bit earlier about it all, but we're not in it, as Julian mentioned earlier, to play any blame games. The important thing is our residents will be in within a very few weeks. That is the important thing. And the builders, I'm told, are getting on with the job, doing a good job. We are checking on it daily, and it all seems to be on track. So I just wanted to mention that because that has been widely publicised recently. So moving on, positive news. Izzy may have a bit more detail on this if you'd like it, but you may remember that we have purchased some temporary housing in Westville in Kingsbridge, which is great because it will help to ease our housing pressures. We have 9 flats there from memory. A refurbishment work has been cracking on there, and I'm not sure if it's finished, but it's cracking on anyway, and that will help to ease the pressures, as I say. So that is good news because that's a big issue for this council and for councils around the country with the homelessness issues and the housing crisis that we and other councils have declared. Moving on to the actual agenda, you'll be pleased to know the Southampton housing offer. I always call it housing officer, but so I'll start with number 2 because I'm perverse and not number 1. The Southampton housing offer, and quick an actual breaking news on that one. We have had a very generous offer for a plot of land offered in the last couple of weeks by a landowner for affordable housing. So we will be obviously looking into that one. Just to recap, the Southampton housing offer is council supporting our communities to try to bring forward affordable housing schemes around our districts, and we are urging landowners to take part in that by donating or offering land at a reasonable price for said affordable housing schemes. It was launched at the beginning of the year, so it's quite a new scheme, but it's obviously got off to a flying start. So I must pay tribute to our housing team who are cracking on with this and doing a really good job, as they always do. And we have 4 other sites, apart from the one I've mentioned, which are being progressed. Because it's an early scheme, a new scheme, obviously they're at an early stage. So we can't give exact details about everything. There are 9 inquiries, 4 schemes being progressed. The first one, I can give more details. It is Stoke Gabriel Community Land Trust. It has brought forward a site. The owner wants to help the community by offering land at a realistic price. So preliminary massing plans have been produced with talking about 15 units, and comments from planning are being addressed. And the next stage for that is to refine the layout, get some costings, and prepare a business case. So that sounds very encouraging. We have another large scheme agreed in principle, a plot which could produce 30 affordable units. An initial appraisal has been completed on that one, and a business case has been produced confirming viability. The next stage is to enter an option with the landowner, site surveys, and engage with the parish council to develop that scheme to a pre-application stage. 2 other sites, so that makes 4. They're being looked at as smaller sites, as I understand, potential for 10 units on each, in the process of resolving title issues before commissioning design work. You may be wondering, we had 9 inquiries, what happened to the others that don't progress? There are reasons for that, including in one case challenging access, which would have made the site unviable. We've had input from Devon County Council, which, as I said, deals with highways issues and access, etc. And in another case, the landowner was looking for a commercial return, which is not what we're after. We have a housing crisis, and we're looking to provide affordable housing, genuinely affordable housing. So if members could please point anyone interested in the South Hams housing offer to our website, where there is plenty of information on all this. And I think this is a growing success story. Obviously, it ain't over till it's the boots are on the ground, the spades are in the ground, and all the rest of it. But it's going well so far. But we don't want to prematurely say everything's successful, as Julian mentioned earlier. But it looks good from where we're sitting. So that's we're being asked to endorse. No, we've been asked to note that progress, and secondly, we're being asked to endorse the parish profile approach. And just to explain, traditionally we have used housing needs surveys in which people in a particular village area are written to ask what their views are on affordable housing. Do they need affordable housing? What do they think? Sometimes that can be counterproductive, we have found. In one case, for example, I won't name where it is, but we've had people who, I don't know, may have more than one home, may have a nice home and do not want affordable housing anywhere near them, who may have made comments on a housing needs survey that has led someone trying to provide land, a landowner, to feel it's the last straw in trying to do the good job that he's doing. And so it sort of shoots oneself in the foot, because the affordable housing need is recognised, but comments like that discourage people. So we've tried to look for a new approach, and I think it looks like a very good one. We have produced parish profiles. I gather each member of the executive has been sent one within their own ward, so if they have any comments, please let us know at this meeting. In a nutshell, the parish profiles have been created to give a broad set of data and information about housing need in a particular area of the district, including, for example, house sale prices, availability on Devon Home Choice and numbers of people waiting for housing, as well as children on the school rolls, those receiving free school meals. So lots of information which point to what's going on there. It is available on our council website. It is updated annually, at least. We are always looking for comments so that we can add or change things. It's a living thing. The council can share and does share and has shared with housing associations, so-called registered providers, partners that we work with, to support, for example, bids from Homes England for central government grants and development on exception sites through the South Hams housing offer. So it has a very important role to play. All councillors can comment on their particular parish profiles, let me know if they haven't got one, they can't find it. Or there's an appendix with it was a Salcombe one, I think we have. So obviously there's a great need in Salcombe. It's got more second homes than practically anywhere. And that's about it. The Housing Advisory Group will be looking at, we'll be asking them to look at it as well in detail to consider whether they want any improvements made or changes made. And that's about it really from me at the moment. If anyone's got any questions.
Thank you, Denise. Jackie.
Thank you, Denise. That was really interesting. Thank you. And congratulations on those two elements of supporting. Just on the affordable housing, there's one question there and another question on the parish profiles. In terms of affordable housing, I'm aware, for example, that in my ward, one of the newer developments, some of those houses now are going for over £1 million. And I just wonder how much that influences the affordable housing, which it's still not complete. They're being sold off plan kind of thing, albeit half built. And I just wonder, you know, if affordable housing is supposed to be about 80% of that price, then 800 grand ish is not affordable. Does the affordable value, which presuming that the affordable element is sold to or managed or somehow worked with an affordable housing deliverer, do they get a much different price to that to purchase? Because I would have thought it would, you know, that's just ridiculous pricing. You're not going to get anybody taking up those purchases. And my second point is about the parish profiles. The Staverton one, by interest, I just ran it past the parish council last night, and the average house price in Staverton of 1.6 million in 2022 made all their hair stand on end. And we worked out that was probably just one house that was sold in Staverton that year. And the point I'm making is maybe a bit of context might just help that, because it says that the prices have decreased by 195% this year. So it just, you know, in terms of what it might do to either alarm or excite potential developers, it could give them, but also in terms of fact checking, because the school that's mentioned in the Staverton one, that's not accurate actually. There is actually a school in Staverton Parish, primary school, you know, so it's like, so I just think maybe using the parish councils for a bit of extra information. But on top of that, just because it talks about the education, it's sort of, in some ways, I know, and developers are the first of the people who might be beneficiaries of this. I don't think it should be aimed too much towards developers as much as maybe people doing neighbourhood plans and recognising in their neighbourhood plans. And one of the things that when we did the Thriving Towns and Villages profiles, we looked at the facilities, and I wonder if maybe just a little box with the community facilities would also be of interest, because, you know, people who might, you know, ordinary families moving in would perhaps pick up on this, and they think, oh look, it's got a community hall, it's got, you know, there's maybe some allotments there, or some, you know, some of those little bits, post office, you know, public transport. So just a little small sort of tick box of things that might be, that we actually assessed anyway for those things, I thought might be additional information. I'm trying to give you extra work because I think actually it's a really useful piece. And thank you.
Can't find my microphone. Yeah, thanks, Jackie, for that. That's really useful. It's exactly what we want from going to the second one you mentioned first. Want some feedback, because we can add, change, update, because not everything in every parish is going to be exactly right. It's difficult to, but we want to be liaising with parish councils, like you said, and communities, and you know, we can't do it in a bubble. We need to be coming out to the communities and asking them for input, so that it's a living document, like I said, and we want to be getting it right. And so that's really useful feedback, and I'd welcome more of the same. Izzy's our head of housing sitting next to me, so we're taking that on board. But so yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much for that. That's really useful and positive. The first thing you mentioned was affordable housing. I don't know. Do you mean is it Baker Estates?
Certainly is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean with the Southampton housing offer, we're trying to do a different way. Obviously, we when I say genuinely affordable housing, ideally you're wanting housing which matches wages, income, people's income, and we have high house prices as we've mentioned, and we have low wages, probably some of the highest differential in the country. And unfortunately, that isn't really reflected in the way the system works with the private development and then some affordable housing, which, as you look closer, isn't really that affordable. 80% is of a lot is still a lot. So that's very frustrating. There are different kinds of affordable housing. Obviously, there's social rent, which is more of the ideal type, which is more 60%, I think, as a rough guide, 60%. So that is more what we're looking for. But yes, it's an ongoing frustration for us. This 80% is not ideal. It's not where we would like to be. I don't know if Izzy would like to comment on.
My comment was really more about what's fixed up in advance. It's not, is there a set sort of deal worked up as the development is going through at that early stage?
Yeah, there are different kinds of affordable housing. But Alex of our housing team is here, and I'll turn my mic.
I mean, equally with the monolith in Totnes, the big was it 50 houses units that gave us 400 grand towards affordable housing. I mean, those units, those single and double bedroom flats, are going for very high prices, and yet they couldn't afford to give us the 30%. And I just wonder whether we do have any kind of, I know they don't usually agree to clawback, but it just seems that we're being taken for a bit of a ride. We're not careful, unless you've got some mechanism behind the scenes, which I'd be delighted to hear.
So the £1 million that you mentioned for the property in your parish, a housing association wouldn't pay a percentage of that value, 80% or 60%. It's all worked out very, very differently, and it's a dark art that the housing associations work that out at. We collect all of that data every time there's a transfer, as long as the housing associations are willing to share it, which they are more often than not. So we collect all of that, so we know roughly what's been paid, but I can tell you categorically they will not be paying over £800,000 for a property on a housing estate. What was the other question? Sorry, was there another one part to that?
Just on it, Jackie, I think we need to be careful because we're moving to sort of planning here, some of it.
It's about to help me deliver housing though, because if
absolutely
if housing trusts can't afford to pay for places because they're being priced out because of where the basic house price starts. It just seems we're trying to deliver 30% affordable. So on the one hand, we get housing developers that say, oh, we can't afford the 30%, like in Totnes that time with that big load of housing, and yet they're selling their houses now, the units there, for big prices. And at the same time, we've got, so we bailed out on the basis that we had cheaper availability for people in the town, and doesn't seem to be the case, to be frank. But, then Baker Estates now basically selling off plan, they haven't completed the whole estate. But, if they're now putting out sales for over £1 million, then my query was really about, have we already secured the value of the affordable to make sure the housing trusts aren't going to be outpriced, really?
Well, that will be contained in the condition. The condition if it's 30% affordable, and that as long as that fits within the definition of affordable, be it rented, part ownership, then that will be part of the planning application itself. I think what we're straying is a lot of the housing offer that we're doing here is 30%. We're looking at sort of 90 to 100% affordable on these sites that we're coming up with. Well, admittedly, they're a lot smaller, but what I don't want to do is to turn that into we know that that the rules that we have been set by central government in respect of building houses and affordable housing do not work. And the examples that you're coming up with are exactly that. That is a separate piece of work that we'll look to with the joint local plan and the review of it, where we will be looking to tighten up on that, so we don't find ourselves in that position. But I think we are where we are at the moment, and I appreciate what you say, and that is reflected across the district, where supposedly affordable houses, first of all, the percentage is incredibly low, and secondly, they're not affordable. So it's a frustration that we all feel, and hopefully, what's happening with the housing offer is that we're getting, albeit as I say, smaller scale sites, but coming forward, particularly in our villages and smaller towns, where we are getting incredibly high percentages of affordable due to the generosity and philanthropy of landowners in and around the South Hams, which is exciting. And just leading on from that, Denise, thank you for everything that you're doing, and Izzy, because if we can start to get that flow coming forward, then I think when people see this is what can happen and this is how it works and this is the difference that it makes, hopefully that will add, other people will come forward. Hopefully, but that's it. Does that sort of respond to your query?
No, but maybe it's a different conversation. It's just a question of, like, I know sometimes what I'm suggesting is behind the curve, if you like, but there are new developments coming forward all the time. The parish profiles maybe will attract people, and I just feel that it's really important that somehow, if somebody's getting getting a 30% affordable as part of the offer, because that's under our joint local plan at the moment, I just wondered how we can secure that 30% to be genuinely affordable, despite what they decide to do when they go through to the estate agents. Because we do look at, I haven't looked at a viability assessment for a long time now, but I assume our officers do, to agree that maybe it is or isn't. And certainly that one in Totnes, which is now being sold out, they're at prices that I can't see how they could not afford to do.
Yeah, of course, and that's why the planning committee, or the development management committee, was absolutely insistent that there was no way we were allowing it go through with nothing for affordable.
400 grand is going to buy one less than one flat in there.
Yeah, no, agreed.
That's what
but then on the other hand, 100,000 from our housing offer is already delivering a lot more. So you have to see what you can do with it.
No, I really welcome all of that. That's the difference. Yeah.
Jackie, you're talking about a planning application that's got a condition to provide of 30% affordable housing. They are perfectly entitled, if they want to take that to appeal or to say they're not going to pay that. That's the law, that's the process, and we can't really do anything about that. What we can do is to make sure that we have as tight a plan as possible that stops that wriggling around that developers do. It's a frustration that we have, but we are trying to work in a parallel to that to provide other housing, other ways of delivering housing, which do not fall foul of this developer's greed. So if there's an application and it says it's going to be 30% affordable, and that's what's signed off on the planning 106 or legal agreement, that's what it is, and they can change it, but they have to come back to committee to do so.
Ask one question then, because I'm only really doing it because the housing officer, because I'm really genuinely interested as to whether or not the so-called affordable will be genuinely affordable to the housing trust, so that they are actually able to buy them rather than get caught into such an expensive market that they end up not being able to be made available. That's all my question. And if it's another question we need to take elsewhere, that's fine.
Yes, they will be genuinely affordable for people to buy either through shared ownership or rent through the housing trust. The housing trust will be able to afford to buy those properties as well.
Good. And just, can I say on the profiles, I think Jackie's idea of, I think it'd be really useful actually if all those profiles go to parish councils, because certainly the one I saw didn't pick up on, it was on East Portalmouth, it didn't pick up on Baker's Piece, which is social housing. It's owned by a trust, the Waterhouse Trust. So I absolutely will get more and better information because the parish councils have that local knowledge. And if we can either do that directly to the parishes, or if members make sure that every time they get sent each profile for their parishes, and then they can forward that onto the clerk, and that can be circulated and discussed at a parish council meeting. Dan, then I come to you, Chris.
Yeah, I wanted to make that same point, leader, but I wanted to go a bit further, because I support what Councillor Hodgson said, particularly around not so much the formal assets of community value, but community assets, as it were, things that are important in communities. I think that absolutely should be on there. I totally support that. I agree with you as well about talking to parish councillors, but I think we should go a step further. I think ultimately, and maybe this is the plan anyway, but ultimately we should be encouraging parish councils to have PDFs of this on their websites. And if that is the plan, then great, because actually, we should be promoting this as far as possible, and parishes are going to find them really useful. I think they're great.
No, agreed. And I think, one of the things that came about as discussions, sometimes quite robust discussions we've had about the housing needs survey. But I mean, to me, housing needs survey, average bids for a 2-bedroom house in Salcombe, average number of bids for A to 45. I think that sort of shows us like housing need in that area. I don't think you need to go out and ask people. There's a housing need, that says it. Bang. And if we can formalise that as a way of saying that illustrates a housing need, then we don't need to go through all that rigmarole of doing asking people who then, when anything happens, it's too late, it's already moved out of the parish or what have you. But anyway, Chris.
Thank you, Leader. Actually, Councillor Thomas stole quite a bit of my thunder there, but typically. But also to echo what you said about the parish profiles, I think this is a brilliant idea, and we should go back to the parish councillors themselves and say, could you contribute to this? And if there's anything you want to add, take away, anything that you think would be a credit to this piece of work, I think that would be very, very welcome. I want to also ask, Leader, one of the parish councillors approached me recently and asked myself whether it would be worth them doing their own parish housing needs survey. Now, Julian, I have a very similar opinion to you about housing surveys and how effective they are. This particular parish councillor said that they might be able to get a better participation on a survey if they did it. I don't know what the rules are around that, because we are, of course, the housing authority in this instance, but I'd just like to get a reaction from the executive about that.
I mean, my feeling is they can, if they want to, they can. I don't think it's, I mean, the issue that I've always had about housing needs surveys, first of all, I think there is a housing need, we know that, you don't need to do it, it's confirming what we know already. And secondly, what you do is that you do a housing needs survey, you set lots of hairs running, and it comes back and it says we need 10 affordable houses, by which time anything that actually takes place, those 10 people who said they needed those affordable houses have grown up and moved on. So they're out of date. I think much more useful is when we're looking at the social and affordable housing or tenancies that we have within that parish, and just look at the bids that come in when they go. I think that's a snapshot that gives it straight away that we need to know. And you don't need the participation, because it's a sort of dynamic, interactive action that's going on already. So, I mean, if a parish wants to do it, I would say to a parish, if they're very keen to do something like that, because presumably they've identified that need, is to go around and try and find landowners and come up with good sites. And then if what we've done, and what Denise and the work that she's doing around these sites, like I said, if we can get a conveyor belt of these sites coming forward, delivering the houses that the parishes want, and then it would give us confidence, but also landowners and possibly parishes confidence that we might be able to do it in their area. So that would be my suggestion. But in the end, it's up to them if they want to do it. Of course, they can. Sam.
Thank you. Obviously, we've had the housing needs survey in several of the towns, villages in my ward. I'm just asking some clarity really as to what role it plays, if any, in the planning process.
So originally, and I think it actually may be specifically mentioned within our planning rules, when we're talking about exception sites or village initiative sites and things like that, it did say that we need to have, you have to prove there's a need. And I've always found it incredibly frustrating, because I would challenge anyone who lives in the South Ham to find anywhere in the South Ham so there is not a housing need. And so why are we spending a lot of time and money doing these housing needs surveys when all they do is confirm what we know already, that there's a housing need? So look, absolutely, if they do them, it's not going to hinder it. It will probably help. We have had examples, and Denise alluded to it, where people use the housing needs survey to basically be act like a NIMBY and say we don't need anything. You know, what they mean is I don't need anything and I don't want anyone else moving into the beautiful area that I live, you know, which I don't think is helpful, and it also starts contention. I think if we have just a factual sheet like this, there it is, can't argue with it, Bob's your uncle. But so they've done those housing needs surveys. It won't harm it, but I think they're history myself. I think we need to move on from that and be more sophisticated about how we actually make the decisions and decide where we want you know, plots to be developed.
Sorry, thank you for that. But just so the results of it don't hold more weight than what's currently in the neighbourhood plan. So if there's a conflict, you know, because things have changed since what's in the neighbourhood plan, I just know some of my parishes it's been used to justify that the neighbourhood plan may be out of date, and because there's this new survey. So does it hold any weight in the kind of planning process in terms of joint local plans and neighbourhood plans, etc.?
It will hold some weight. It will be a material consideration, absolutely. But I think it would be hard to say, you know, which one carries the most weight. Usually, whichever one supports your argument, I would say. but no, I mean, you know, they will have to take that into account, and obviously, a developer. I mean, another thing about housing needs surveys is we've seen where developers have used it as a way of manipulating it and deliberately misinterpreting it to come up with what they want to do, which is so. There are pros and cons to it, but I think what this parish profile thing is doing is it's a way of moving forward, moving away from this housing needs survey. It used to be, piece of land comes forward, we need to do a housing needs survey. It's like, no, we've got the parish plan. If at a later date we need to do a housing needs survey, absolutely, but no, it won't be you know, that is not the first hurdle that people get thrown, and you know, they cost money, and people get excited because they've been asked for, you know, do you want to have a house? Yes, I do. Or excellent, we're going to do it. You know, I think it's a better way of doing it, in my view, and I think it's a good way forward. So I really support these parish profiles. I think they're great.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a couple of comments and one question really. Just to follow on with you in St Anne's, I've visited there every single day since last Wednesday, and I'll be there again tomorrow when they've promised. Probably this is just to remedy the road problems. They could come up tomorrow with an estimated time of completion because it's moving forward at speed. Which is great news, and I've been up and watched them, and they're getting fed up with seeing me, I think. But they do recognise me now, which is quite good. But and they just accused me of being there to make sure they work, and I said, "Well, that's what I'm here for." but it is one of these things, and Denise and I have been talking about it most days, to be honest. But that's fine. But that's moving forward, and I just wanted to just give a little update on that, really, because tomorrow I will be going up there, and we hopefully get some sort of idea on their estimated time, because it might not be 4 weeks, it might be 4 weeks, but that is what the outset was, 4 weeks, I believe. The other one is, I think that the parish profiles are great, but I think it's up somewhat to the ward members to push it as well, because we can take it to the parish councils and we can promote that all the way through, rather than, because I'm not in favour of these going in there and asking people, because I know that my road would say no, because they're all in, not my particular one, but they're all in 1 million plus houses, and they don't want it near theirs. So, but that would be good if we could do a parish profile there, because we got on each parish there's somebody that deals with housing, and they would know roughly what it is, and you get a genuine return rather than a false return, which you could get with people that not on my backyard. But that's fine. So I think we could do a bit of work to that. And a question really is, the CLT's got South Brent affordable units. Is that moving forward, or is that stalemate, or what's happening at South Brent? Because that was meant to go the same time as St Anne's Chapel, and that's going back a bit, and nothing's moved on that one yet. and that's a CLT, I think.
Can I suggest we answer that directly with you outside the meeting?
Yes, that's
I'm not
fine.
sure we've got the information
Okay,
with us at this point.
I just wanted to know where it is because it's been dragging on a little bit. Thank you, Chairman. That's all.
No, thank you, Bernard, and thank you for all your monitoring at St Anne's Chapel. It's great to see. Denise.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the same. I should have thanked you, omitted to thank you, Councillor Taylor, my man on the ground, man on the spot, doing a very good job, keeping them in order. But I'm sure they seem to be cracking on. So, yeah, happy days, we hope. No, thanks for that. And as regards South Brent, we have had meetings on that, and we'll discuss it later. I'll discuss it later.
I can unload my gun now because I think it's on.
Yeah. Thanks, Blair.
Great, thanks. Any more on this, Nadine?
Sorry, it may be a silly question, but can I ask the parish profiles? Who are they aimed at? What's the hope of having them?
As I think I mentioned, they're very useful, for example, to housing associations, registered providers that we work with to provide affordable housing. So they can see, they can evidence the need, when we want to provide housing in a particular area. So it's useful for that, and, to apply for grants from central government for housing, from Homes England, the organisation which you get grants through. So that's the obvious sort of reason to have them. It's evidence, really, and it's evidence that you need it, in the planning system when planning applications are brought through. So you've got to have some sort of evidence, and we've been discussing that the traditional housing needs survey we don't feel is necessarily useful for our needs, and so we were looking at this instead. So it has there's a absolutely good reason to have it. It is used as evidence. Which is why it's very important for councillors to look at it and give us feedback. And of course, as we've mentioned, parish councils, town councils who are, representing their communities, we're going to be showing it to them as well and getting their feedback because they are involved in the planning system as well. They make comments ahead of any decisions that we as a planning authority make. So they will need, they have, for example, my own ward, there's a planning committee at Kingsbridge, so they need this sort of information as well, and to contribute, to look at and to contribute to. So is that helpful?
Yeah, I was just wondering how the context for my feedback, like if it was going to be a profile for people looking to move into the area, then having all of the assets and the numbers for schools and all of that stuff would be really useful for them. But if it was within a certain context, then I was just looking for that.
I think Izzy might have a bit more information. Yes, thank you.
All this information is already available publicly, so we just wanted to put it in one place. So it was really handy for members of the planning committee, members, parish councils, housing associations to find all this information in one handy guide. Where do we stop with the information? We could sort of create Bibles on each parish of all the things that might be of use. And I think we have to be quite pragmatic with what we include. These are housing profiles from a kind of housing angle. But, it might give us the idea to do other profiles in the future about other elements of our priorities. But this is a start. If we need anything else that would be really useful, we really want to hear back from the feedback. They should be available online. We're going to do it as a sort of list of them, so you'll be able to click on them and look at the individual ones. And it might help with neighbouring parishes as well, in certain areas as well, that actually there might be less of a need here, but more of a need if you include the neighbouring villages. So hopefully really helpful for you, but all this information is already publicly available. We just try to be a bit helpful.
Has anybody else got any, if anyone else hasn't got any questions, we're being asked to endorse the parish profile approach, so I move that we do. controversially.
and to just note the progress of yeah. I mean that's noting. But are you happy to second Dan? So that's been proposed by Denise, seconded by Dan.
Sorry, I was.
You're on.
Oh, was I on then? Yeah, okay. I just wasn't sure if my
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Computer right in front of my microphone. So I have moved to endorse it. That's excellent.
Right, so it's been proposed and seconded. So all in favour, please shout.
That's unanimous for both recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Izzy. And I think it's they may change a bit those profiles, but I think they're it's great. It's great. They're really concise, really helpful. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Item 11, Staverton Neighbourhood Plan. Dan.
Thank you, Leader. Always an enjoyable task to ask the executive to approve the making of a neighbourhood plan. This is the neighbourhood plan for Staverton. I draw exec members' notice to the fact that a really encouraging 37% of local residents turned out for this, which is higher than some of our local elections and police and crime elections and the like. So it's really encouraging to see that the residents in this parish were so enthused, and 88% of them voted in favour of the plan. It is an excellent plan. It's really user friendly. I very rarely talk at length about neighbourhood plans. I'm not going to talk at length, but I am just going to take you through a fast track. There are 16 policies, and I think I'm just going to run through them to give you an idea of how a neighbourhood plan can really encapsulate the flavour of a parish and what's important to them. So we start with sustainable communities, which we've just been talking about. What's important in communities. Staverton have laid out in purple and black, in fact, rather than black and white, exactly what those are. And then we move on. We've got local green spaces policies. We've got settlement boundaries, which you'd expect in a neighbourhood plan, particularly if you sat on the planning committee. We've got policies around housing development and around specifically affordable housing in the single plot exception sites. There are policies around business, employment and tourism, around the reuse of redundant farm buildings, around broadband and telecommunications infrastructure, design and construction, heritage and conservation. I think you probably take the point, Leader. It's really excellent. Landscape and biodiversity, tranquility and dark skies, travel and transport, renewable energy, energy in new developments, and sustainable drainage. I mean, we are talking about an A1 document, a really A1 document. Mr. Swiss is here. I know will be able to answer any technical questions. I've enthused enough. I will give way to the local member who I'm sure would like to enthuse some more.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, no, excellent. Jackie.
So I'm very glad I proposed that they did a neighbourhood plan about 2013, 2012. No, until it went, when was it? 2015. The new parish council came in, a whole new raft of them apart from one member who stayed on. And they did a public consultation. They asked people what they wanted. Bridget Green, who was an officer here, some people remember, who sadly died. She came along to the meeting, talked about neighbourhood plans. And they went for two things. One was neighbourhood plan, and one was to have youth services. And they are a fantastic parish council. And this is just a really sort of, I think, shows their commitment, the work they've put in, huge amounts of work, incredibly professional approach to pretty well everything they do. They really do. And the things you'll see in here, like their wildlife area, Tuesday night, big wildlife meeting about how to, looking after it. They engage people and they do an awful lot with the community. And, the fact that, as you say, they had a good turnout, which is, was again a product of them hosting, public consultations to tell people this is happening. So, yeah, I think they're the praise that you've just given is well deserved to both the steering group, some of whom were parish councillors too, and the parish council who've supported it every which way along and engaged in the process. So, yeah, I think it's just been a really good example, and the product is a good product too. So, yeah, thank you for the comments. I'll be happy to pass them on to the parish council and the steering group, and I would support you supporting this, being made today. Thank you.
Excellent. And any other comments? No, I mean, yeah, do pass on the thanks. I mean, it's obviously, brilliant. Well done. Dan, do you want to propose?
Jackie, would you like to?
What?
Propose it, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
And, yeah, happy to second. So that's been proposed and seconded. The recommendations as on the board. So all those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous for 2 recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you all very much. And I think that brings us, that's the last item I've got on my agenda. So that brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you all very much. Good to see you all and see you all soon. And I'll formally end the meeting.